Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Vanda, your host, founder of the Period Makeover Solution, and today we're doing a special bonus episode to bring you a case study of one of my recent clients. This is the first case study that I'm doing for a client that has been using the Mira device that I have recorded a couple of podcast episodes about, mentioned in episodes. If you have no idea what that is or what I'm talking about, you can click back to episode 81 of the podcast where I introduced the Mira fertility tracker for the very first time, talk a little bit about it. And then you guys are going to continue to hear a little bit more about it. To just give you the very basics of what Mira is, Mira is an at-home hormone tracking device. The way that it works is with an app, and you enter data about your previous menstrual cycle. It will then create a testing plan for you. You collect morning urine samples. You then have these testing wands that come with the device. You dip the wand for 20 seconds, you insert it into the testing device, and within 16-ish minutes, depending on the wand that you're using, you will get your testing results. And with the particular wands that I like best and have my clients to use, we're getting 4 different hormone readings from that test. We are getting estrogen, progesterone, LH, and FSH. The testing plan that Mira creates for you doesn't have you test every single day of a cycle, but has you testing frequently, so often every other day to every 3 days. And sometimes when you're working with me as your practitioner, we can space that out even a little further to kind of help preserve some of those testing ones so that we're not having you just test for the sake of testing on a particular day. We want to use the test wisely and use them when we really need to see the exact data so that you can get the most out of your purchase. So, like I said, this is the first case study episode that I am bringing to you from one of my clients that has used this successfully to become pregnant. And we were very blessed in the fact that she was able to get pregnant the very first cycle that we worked together, and she had the Mira tracking device and used it and implemented the things. That's wonderful. It is such a blessing. I'm so excited for her. And I also still want to call out the fact that although that was the case for this client, this isn't a magic solution. So it wouldn't be that way for every single client. I'm sure I will have clients in the future, I have a client now that, we've been tracking with, and she hasn't gotten pregnant on this very first cycle. Trying to conceive and trying to get pregnant can take months. I mean, sometimes, especially when people are kind of getting to the point that they are concerned about possible issues with infertility, if you bring those concerns to your traditional provider, they're most of the time going to tell you, unless there's other factors at play, they're going to tell you that until you've hit the point that you've been trying to conceive for more than a year, they aren't really going to do anything or investigate things any further because it can just naturally take longer to get pregnant than sometimes we would like for it to. Now, I personally believe that waiting for a full year without any further testing, explanation, investigation is on the irresponsible side and is a little dismissive to women's experiences and their concerns. That would not be my approach. It's not the approach that I take with my clients. We are definitely investigating things and having conversations before that 1 year mark. But I just did want to kind of preface with that information. Now, to maintain the confidentiality for this particular client, I will not be sharing her name, but she is obviously female. She's about 26 years old and had been trying to conceive for several months when she reached out to me to talk about this opportunity to see if maybe the at-home hormone testing with Mira would be a good fit for her. At the time, she shared with me that, she was concerned because they had been trying for several months. She hadn't had any positive pregnancy tests, no missed periods, had not been pregnant during that time. And she really just wanted to get a check-in on, are my hormone levels where they should be? Is there anything that stands out as being concerning? And can we confirm that I am indeed actually ovulating? And that's one of the things that I really like about the Mira device because we can do that. Because of the data that we get with this testing, we get to evaluate the LH peak. So we know when you're ovulating, and then we after that day, that point in time, we continue testing throughout the remainder of the cycle to see what the progesterone levels are going to do. Because if we do not see a progesterone rise after an LH peak, then ovulation has likely not happened and it would be a non ovulatory cycle. Even though the woman would still start her period, probably at or right around the same time or as what's normal for her, that doesn't always mean that ovulation is actually occurring. And sometimes women don't know that. They don't realize that. They've never been taught that before. But just because you're having a period, you're having a bleed, does not mean that you are ovulating. And that is, when you're on forms of birth control, the main way that most birth controls works is to shut down that ovulation, but you're still having a bleed. And some women, I think, do understand that part of it. Some women just have never been taught that that can happen. You can have these non-ovulatory cycles, even when you're not on any form of birth control. It just naturally happens in your body. And there can be, various different reasons for that I'm not going to get into today on this podcast episode, but maybe we'll bring back for an episode in the future. So the way that this worked out for this particular client, we immediately were able to get her set up as my client. She ordered the Mira device to be shipped out to her. Their shipping is super quick, which was great. So she received the device within just a couple of days. And timing wise, we were at a really great point in her current cycle to start testing right away. Because when she received it, I'm looking at her chart now, she was 3 to 4 days out from when her period bleeding stopped. That meant that we knew within the next week-ish, we were going to be coming up on her ovulation. And that was the biggest thing that we wanted to see and verify here. And anytime that you are working to conceive, that's what you want to know. You want to know when your LH peak happens, because then when you see that LH peak on your testing, within 24 hours is when your body is going to ovulate and actually release the egg. And so then you know how to time intercourse around that so that you can successfully get pregnant. Now, with her testing, like I said, we were able to establish that LH surge, have conversations around, timing of intercourse and things. And then we were in a holding pattern. People that are in the trying to conceive community frequently talk about the 2-week wait period. And it is when you're in the thick of trying to get pregnant and you are so aware of where you're at in your cycle, what's going on, and when things should happen, that 2-week waiting period can feel like 4 months. I mean, it can just feel like an eternity because you're just waiting, and you're also in this limbo, and you're in a headspace of kind of over analyzing every symptom, every thing that pops up. You're wondering to yourself, oh, well, is this an early sign of pregnancy? You're probably Googling at 2 a.m. What, is, I don't even know. I can't think, is getting up to pee in the middle of the night a sign of early pregnancy? Is my sore boobs a sign of early pregnancy? And there's so many things when you're that early on in pregnancy that, yes, absolutely can be early signs of pregnancy, but they can also just be normal signs of other things happening in life, and also just the coming of your period and the other, hormone changes that are going on. So, in one sense, it's so great to have the data and be able to see, okay, we knew that I ovulated. Now we can definitely confirm that ovulation because we see that progesterone is rising. One of the things that, you know, I wish that there was some type of magic wand or magic test that we could do even earlier than traditional pregnancy tests where we could see, like, yes, it does look like you're pregnant, but everyone is in that holding pattern. We still do have to wait until that missed period or the couple of days before we get into taking a pregnancy test, looking at, um, whether we think that there is a pregnancy or not. There are certainly those early indicators, those feelings, that like level of intuition that many women feel. But there is no, like, Mira, the point I'm getting at here is that Mira is not testing for pregnancy. It's not a pregnancy test. It is still evaluating those same hormone levels, for the remainder of the cycle. So when we got to the point that this client had missed her period, she was a day or so late, we were checking in with each other, having conversations. I'm like, okay, like, what are you thinking? How do you feel? Have you taken a test yet? And she hadn't tested yet. She didn't necessarily have any symptoms that were jumping out at her as feeling, like she was pregnant. But, ultimately we were like, well, you are late and you were trying to get pregnant. So you're at a good point now where you can go ahead and test. And she did. And she messaged me back a little later and she was like, well, I did take a test and it was very positive. She had a very dark line. And, that's great. Like, we celebrated that and we're both just like so excited. And then luckily for her, she's been able to, we transitioned her out of my program. There's no need to continue testing these hormones after pregnancy, has been confirmed. She connected with a provider that's going to be her OBGYN. They ordered her an HCG level. She went, she had that checked, and now she's off on her journey with her OBGYN to continue throughout this pregnancy and, have her little baby. And that's like the best case study type scenario that I could bring forward of the work that I've done with women who are trying to conceive. That's the success that we want. We want to see a healthy pregnancy, healthy mama, and in 9 months, we want to see a healthy baby. And hopefully we're well on our way there. This episode, I'm going to keep it short. I'm kind of going to cut it off here. Because there's not much else to say. Like, we did the tracking. She had my support every day of the cycle as we were doing her testing for me to look at it and be like, what is this result mean? What is this telling us? Is there anything that I need to do? Is there anything I need to tweak? She asked me questions about prenatal vitamins and, vitamins for conception for both her and her partner, things they should be doing. We talked about some dietary stuff. That's the great part about having me in your back pocket while you're going through all of this, because the Mira app is great. It does give so much like educational value in terms of this is what this level might mean, or this is what we're checking with this level. But it is still a app and an algorithm, and it's very analytical in its interpretation of the chart, because the information it's spitting out at someone hasn't been customized to that person because they haven't had a conversation. It's different, when you have a practitioner that you're able to tell your symptoms to, ask your questions, give the backstory, you get a better comprehensive assessment and look at your data and what's going on, as compared to you really just told this app when was your last period, how long did it last, and then you're giving it this test result as you're testing throughout your cycle. So this has quickly become one of my very favorite offers and containers that I have with clients. I have developed a package specifically for this. So I don't have a fancy name for it yet. I'll probably come up with it at some point. But for right now, I'm just calling it my 4-week Mira testing package. It includes the testing device and 30 wands, along with a month of support from me, so that we can do the same things I did with this client. I can set you up. I can tell you when to start your testing. I can tell you what your results mean. And this package, this container is not only meant for people that are trying to conceive. It's great for people that are trying to conceive. It's also great for people that are just dealing with hormone imbalance in general, to figure out, are we dealing with some estrogen dominance? Do we not have enough progesterone? I have a client right now that I'm also working with that's getting into perimenopause and really trying to determine at this point, like, are her symptoms that are kind of ramping up and have been changing over the last couple of months, are they due to perimenopause? Is it because she has PCOS? Is there anything that we can work on to help change that and kind of get her back to what her normal baseline is? So there's so many different, opportunities and different ways that we can use this information. Now, I do want to give a reminder before I drop off that on Tuesday, we are celebrating the 100th episode of the podcast. There is going to be a celebration, there's going to be a giveaway associated with it. So if you haven't yet, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss that episode and any other future episodes. And if you're someone that's listening to this and you're like, I would really like to have Vanda's support while I try to conceive or as I navigate my hormone imbalance, there's always a link in the show notes for you to schedule a Happy Hormones Clarity call with me where we can jump on a 20-minute call. There's no cost for it. I gather a little bit of information from you in a short form. It's just a couple of questions before we get on the call. And that way we can come together and I can give you some guidance and some advice. And then if it makes sense for us to do one of these programs together and work together, I can tell you about that, tell you what your options are. We can discuss it and then we can move forward from there. So that link is in the show notes. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and I will talk to you on Tuesday.